Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you back to the Dynamic Decisions podcast, where we explore the strategies that drive successful decision making in the world of business. Why? Because the best decisions come from great conversations. I'm your host, Teasha Cable, CEO of C Model Data, and today we have an inspirational guest who is transforming the agricultural landscape. Jehiel is the Chief Executive Officer at Hello Tractor. He's dedicated over a decade leveraging technology to enhance agricultural productivity and food security, connecting tractor owners with smallholder farmers through an innovative platform. Jehiel, welcome to the show. It's fantastic to have you here today. Can you share a little bit about Hello Tractor and the mission behind the work in the ag tech space?
Thanks, Teasha, and thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I love the intro. Yes, I started the business 10 years ago. I come from a background of finance, but just wanted to do work that was more meaningful for me. So post financial crisis, decided to quit my job and do work in first microfinance, which was loans to predominantly low income communities who are kind of been pushed to the margins of the financial system, mostly in emerging markets. And from there, just really fell in love with agriculture and the catalytic impact it can have in rural communities, and particularly in Africa, where 40% of the continent's GDP comes from agriculture. 60% of the labor force is engaged in agriculture. It's super important. And tractors are arguably the most important factor of production in agriculture, but because farmers on the continent are lower income and grow on these small plots of land, they really can't afford to own their own equipment. And so we built a platform that connects them to equipment when they need it at an affordable price, similar to Uber, but for tractors and combine harvesters. And we've been building that business out since then and have quickly become one of the largest companies in what we do, servicing a couple million farmers, 5 million acres of land under our care. So it's been going good. It's been a wild journey, I think.
Congratulations on the success so far. I mean, I know that, entrepreneurship is no joke. And so when you're able to kind of get over a couple of hurdles, especially say, 5 million farmers who've got, or 5 million acres, right? Where with millions of farmers who have more opportunity because you're there is something to be celebrated. So let's dig right in, right? So you've got extensive experience in agricultural technology. What do you believe is the most critical element for organizations to succeed enhancing productivity in your space today?
Well, I think we're a tech-enabled business, so you have to have this interesting combination of leaning into technology that can unlock efficiencies, automations wherever possible. Our strength in this market is a dynamic young workforce, and the employment rates are actually quite high, 50% in our markets amongst this group. So you have access to labor, but you still need to optimize that labor because you're operating in an industry like agriculture that's incredibly low margin. Farmers don't make a lot, so they can't pay a lot for the services that they require. And so you have to keep those prices low. And one way to keep that price low is by keeping your overhead low, which is reducing headcount through automation, through technology. But as you build out technology to solve problems within the business and problems that your farmers might face or your farm equipment owners might face, you have to do that through empathy and proximity to the customer. And that's an interesting combination because oftentimes you think about technology in this kind of abstract way, and you either connect to some APIs or you subscribe to some enterprise platform and snap your fingers and voila, there's value. And agriculture, and I think most of business isn't really like that. You really want to understand the context in which you're deploying technology at the customer level, as well as within the company and your employees, your team members, their customers too, in their own way, and balancing being tech forward with having empathy for these both internal and external customers is really important and where we found success.
For the audience, so context again came up here, which I think we kind of find that when we start thinking about any of these things, applying the right context is important. But then I really like the idea of being balanced between being tech forward and empathetic. To get to that balance will be a milestone for a lot of businesses that I don't know that people think about it. So thank you for sharing that with us. Can you share some of your insights on the importance of technology accessibility for smallholder farmers? How does Hello Tractor's platform actually address this need?
It's interesting because smallholder farmers tend to index older, particularly in our markets where aging farm populations is a real issue. Across the countries that we operate in, we're 18 countries, roughly mid 50s, mid to late 50s is the average age of a farmer. You think about somebody that's in their mid to late 50s isn't necessarily adopting technology at the highest rate. My mom still calls me from Cleveland. I'm sitting in Nairobi and she's like, could you order me an Uber? First of all, it's in the middle of the workday, mom. And I bought you a cell phone for a reason. But
Right.
and many of our customers are like my mom and figuring out ways to reduce as much of the friction as possible as they engage with the platform is critical for our business and is critical for us to serve them, right? And we have to meet them where they are. So what we did was we built a booking application that agents in the community can use. And these agents tend to index younger. We target them. We do it over digital ads. We do it over community activation days, a variety of partnership channels where we can source young people who may be in farming communities already serving or selling seeds, fertilizers. They know farmers, they have trust networks within these communities, and we leverage those trust networks. We get those young people trained up on how to be booking agents on behalf of Hello Tractor. They help us digitize the workflow, finding these farmers who need services, booking on their behalf, aggregating that demand so that when the tractors get deployed, they're servicing, 50, 100 acres a given week and not, 5 acres dotted across some large geographic area, which would be very, very inefficient. So it really serves a lot of purposes having these agents in place. But to answer your question, they're also a way to drive that digital adoption across that last mile of agriculture where the end customer who's benefiting from the services maybe a little older and maybe not as technology savvy, but they can access this through this community-based agent who is trusted, who has the network, who has the ability to aggregate large networks with farmers who need the same service at the same time in the same vicinity, allowing services to now happen at economies of scale in a fully digitized workflow. And they're paid for that. They get paid a commission for that. And about 3 years ago, we saw an opportunity to actually finance these young people to actually become tractor owners. And we call that our pay as you go tractor finance product. And once they reach 1,200 acres of pre-booked farmer demand, we built some custom models to underwrite that and give these young people an opportunity to own these income generating assets. And these are typically not people who can walk into a bank and get a $30,000, $40,000 loan. It's pretty
Yeah.
exciting to be able to give them that opportunity and have them 8 to 10x their take home pay on a monthly basis while delivering these services that's increasing farmer income, reducing drudgery, and all sorts of other spillover benefits.
This is great. First, let me give thank you for giving grace to older people. Thank you very much on
Yeah,
their
shout out
behalf.
to my geriatrics
I
calling me for
appreciate it.
Uber rides 5,000 miles away.
That's right. And for my kids, I hope that you will give me the same grace when I hit that period of time where I'm calling
They
y'all to
won't.
tell me how to
They
do it.
won't.
Okay. The other thing is, so in that though, what you really just highlighted is knowing your customer is ultimately a lever that you can pull for success, and your unlock of community activation to support you because you know who your customer is brilliant. Really, really cool to think about community and network effects in that way. All right,
Uh,
let me ask you this next question. So let's dig into your decision making a little bit here. So, what's your framework for making high stakes decisions when it comes to expanding Hello Tractor's reach and impact in rural? community?
I think for us, because we're in such a resource constrained market where availability of capital is so low, for us, it really boils down to economics. You know, unlike our peers in markets where there's more liquidity and you can raise these investment rounds and just pay for mistakes and really aggressive behaviors that aren't very thoughtful. We can't afford to do that. So we look always at what are the unit economics of a decision to go into a market. We can't afford to lose money. So when we do business, even in these low income environments, we have to think about the profitability of that market entry, of that new product release, of that growth strategy. And sometimes that's as easy as understanding the cost of compute if you enable this new AI feature, right? Or sometimes it's looking before you go into a new country, what's the interest rates, what's the base rates in that country? What's the FX volatility in that country? Some of these macroeconomic conditions that can have a real material impact on profitability and your ability to grow in the market while maintaining cash positivity, because we just can't afford to make those mistakes because there's no benevolent investors on the sideline saying grow, just grow, we'll pay for it. You want to corner the market, you want to capture network effects and all these fancy startup terms. In
Right.
reality, we run a business that needs to make money. And if it's not making money, we need to shut down that activity or that market. And we've done that in the past. We've left a number of markets when we realize, okay, that's not profitable. We've shut down products when we realize there's no pathway to deliver. Even if it's a value add, the incremental value may not be worth the incremental cost. And so we shut it down. And we got to be super disciplined about that. Otherwise, we'll burn through our balance sheet and eventually go out of business.
Yeah. So first of all, let me reiterate to this audience that the unit economics of a decision are extremely important. And if you don't have a methodology in place to really evaluate that, then that's something that needs to be considered right away. And then the second thing you said was discipline. So we know that it's really difficult, right, to make these decisions, but it has to be done every single time. So there should be a way that you think about the unit economics of your decision. So I really appreciate that as a little a nugget of wisdom. Thank you very much. When it comes to tracking outcomes of the decisions that you're making, what are some of the metrics that you find to be the most telling? And I'm going to put it in this way. Metrics that you find the most telling in measuring success for both farmers and tractor owners.
So for farmers, we look at productivity and income, incremental yields. Our goal with all of our growers is to close what's referred to as the yield gap, what our farmers yield on an acre of land versus the global averages across key cereals, crops that we're in, soybean, rice, maize, cassava, potato. Those are our key crops, and then sorghum and millet. And those are the two metrics on the farmer side that are by far the most important. Are you growing more food and are you making more money? One is a systems metric. We want you to grow more food so that at the community and country level, we're promoting more food sovereignty. So our countries aren't having to import food and waste FX used to pay down debt that could be used to reduce their interest rates so they can borrow at a lower cost and grow their economy in more um, innovative areas. And then the other is at the household level. Are we making more profits for our farming families so that in the next season, instead of just buying one service from us, maybe they're buying two, three services with some cash left over to put their kid in school because they don't have the need to put their kids out in the farm anymore because they got a tractor to do the work, right? Agriculture is the biggest contributor to child labor globally. Most people think about the textile industry because we think about these factories and who's making my Jordans, but it's actually farm families who employ their kids because you're not going to send your kid to school hungry. And food comes before learning. Food comes before thought. So, so those are two metrics on the farmer side. On the tractor side, it's all about tractor utilization. Are we getting more acres on those tractors? And then the number of engagements that those tractors have with any given farmer in their field. And that could be land preparation, spraying, fertilizer application, harvesting. We want those tractors in those fields multiple times in a season. It benefits the farmers, it increases their productivity further, but it also increases the take home of the tractor owners. Then of course, if we're financing the tractor, we got to get paid. So
Mhm.
the performance of those loans
Mhm.
we track very closely, and we track NPLs, non-performing loans. Right now, we're at less than 2%. Means 98% of our customers pay on time. We track that.
Congratulations. Yeah.
That's a huge achievement, particularly
Yeah.
since 100% of these borrowers were completely ignored by the traditional financial system with no access to credit, no bank relationships. Now they're sitting around
Yeah.
with a $40,000 loan, killing it. That's
That's great.
exciting.
It is. Yeah.
And so we track that closely and a lot of credit metrics for the
Mhm.
finance tractors. At the end of the day, we want them making money as they deliver these valuable services within these farming communities.
Yeah. So it's kind of like if you took this into any sort of two-sided marketplace environment. So for the listeners, it doesn't have to be, tractors and farmers, productivity metric and income metric. So measuring productivity, measuring income on one side, and on the other side, measuring utilization and engagement. I think that can systematically apply. And I actually like the language you use, systems and household level on one side, right, with for the
Mhm,
farmers, which I thought if you're doing anything where ideally there's some level of impact, like social impact,
mhm,
on one end, you should have an impact metric that's very similar to your household metric. So even though it's income, it's their income, right? The farmer's income versus your own company's money in. I really like that. So when you're thinking about how to ensure that you're actually successful, these are some good ways to think about it. So thank you so much. More nuggets of wisdom. That's what we're gonna call this whole section. We're gonna call this
Well, thank you, Teacher.
nuggets. Okay, let's keep moving. So when you think about your own experiences in agriculture or technology. What decisions have you made that have significantly impacted your operational efficiency?
What decisions have impacted operational efficiency? We implemented OKRs about 5 years ago. That was a really good tool for performance management. And the way it really had a direct impact on operating efficiency was we were able to align. I'm kind of a space cadet. I like to think about kind of strategic level stuff. And I do shy away from the details to my own peril. But when we implemented OKRs, I was able to really design organization wide strategy, break it up into pieces with a really, really good leadership team that took ownership of components of the broader strategy and then distributed those smaller pieces into their operating teams with really, really tight metrics. And it did a couple things. It helped us align the strategy so that everybody on the team could see where they fit in, almost like a kind of a beautiful operating mosaic. But what it also did was it brought so much more accountability. So you're not firing people on instincts or promoting people based on your gut. You have data that you can compare performance against. And those expectations, when they meet it, the organization is clicking, we're growing, and things are working. And when they fall short, that individual contributor sticks out like a sore thumb because we didn't achieve what we were hoping to for that period because that person didn't do what they were supposed to do. And if they do it multiple times, measure twice, cut once, you got to get rid of them. And so that's something that really helped us because it helped align the teams, but then it also helped us in churning through talent that was underperforming while elevating talent, promoting talent that was exceeding expectations. And in a market where you have such a robust, deep labor force, where if we post a job, we'll get thousands and thousands of resumes.
Wow.
You really want to be able to filter for the talent, right? Because you
Yeah.
have a privilege of hiring these some of the best people on earth like and talent is evenly distributed, but opportunity is not. And so when you're presenting these opportunities in markets like Kenya or Nigeria or Rwanda, Uganda, Ethiopia, where we have offices, you got a long of people that you have to filter through. And sometimes that means hiring fast and elevating them as they grow, or getting rid of them if they stall out and they can't keep up with the growth of the company. And you need a very structured approach to do that effectively. And the team is really, I think, leverage tools like OKRs to better manage that talent pipeline, as well as align everyone to the broader strategy.
Where do your values play in that? Are those central to how you decide around your hiring and firing?
Yeah, I mean, I love meritocracies. We all kind of are exposed to environments where people get elevated for things that really are unjustified, relationships they might have, clubs they might belong to. And, I think it's a real competitive advantage when you can look through all that bias and BS and just like, what did you do? Are you good at your job? Are you
Yeah.
exceptional at that thing that I hired you for? And if you
Yeah.
are, I don't care, about the stereotypes and all the things floating around you. In fact, some of those things are an advantage because I look at some people and I look at where they come from. I see that as a plus when people can come from these um, unconventional environments
Yeah.
and make it to a point where we're interviewing you for a job, and it's like, wow, you came from that rural community, or you came from that school that doesn't necessarily produce talent that's interviewing for jobs in top companies. How did you do that? You must have a lot of grit, perseverance, focus, and just raw talent. And that's something that we can mold. I think sometimes we look for these very kind of superficial signals of success, people's LinkedIn profiles or on their resumes. And the truth is, a lot of people who've collected those accolades, it's really strange if they didn't have it. Once you understand their background, you're like, wow, like you were put on a path, right? Like you had this very curated experience journey in life where if you didn't land here, I would question what's the issue. But it's not impressive that you're here. You're supposed to be here. But then you find people where they have very unconventional journeys and they've overcome so much, and it never really shows up. It comes out maybe in conversations. You start asking about their family life and background and where'd you tell you these amazing stories. You're like, wow, like you're an impressive person. You've already lapped that person who was given everything and is just doing okay. Like they're doing exactly what we would expect them to do. But I didn't expect you to be here, and that's special. I want to nurture that, see how much further you can go with some investment and some time and some coaching and mentorship, and
Absolutely.
and we've been able to find some exceptional talent that way and grow that talent into a team of folks that are out competing some of the best companies in our vertical, at least. And when you look at them on paper, you couldn't imagine them being the ones producing this kind of output, but they have that special intangible force within them that we've been able to leverage and for our company's benefit, but also the communities that we service.
I love that you're saying that because I similarly look for that special thing in people. And it has a lot to do with what you can persevere. It has a lot to do with how you think about work, how you put yourself in position to be better, the mindset of growth and learning, right? Constantly trying to achieve the next thing. And I don't just mean like climb corporate ladder, actually trying to be really good at something. Like I value that and appreciate it when I see it in people and try to nurture it. So I totally appreciate that that's where you are. Tell me this, what's hard about your decision making today? Like where is there a problem or a gap?
I mean, I think the hard thing is we genuinely care about our teams, and it's a small team, so it's 115 people in the company, and that's small enough where you have real relationships with most of the staff, and you still have to manage to performance and output. So personalities get set aside, and I'm the kind of person where I can look at the. That's why I love OKRs. I can look at your performance and say, hey, we're friends, and you don't have to go home.
But you got to
But you gotta get out of here. Get out of here. Like, you gotta go. And
right.
that can be hard because you have those relationships. But I think the commitment is to the mission of the company. The commitment
Yeah.
is to the customers. You can't put your internal teams above the customers that you're looking to service because we have to get incredible leverage from every single person in the company for us to continue to reach this massive population. We're talking about, literally tens of millions of people, if not hundreds of millions of people being impacted by this work. And you can't afford to have slippage. And the minute you put individual contributors above literally millions of people, I mean, you're gonna fail as a business, and it may not show up immediately. Sometimes that's a slow death, but I think a lot of businesses suffer from that. And as a leader, you have to be comfortable leaning into those difficult decisions, even when real relationships are at risk. Nobody likes to get fired, right? I think, somewhat blessed in that even for folks on my leadership team that I have to let go,
Uh-huh.
I try to do it in a respectful way. I try and make sure, I'm supporting them in their next stage and giving them a runway to or off ramp that's gonna help at least ease the difficulty for them. And I think most people know it's coming from a good place. That's also where OKRs are useful, or any kind of performance management that's data centric, because you can show it. Like, I don't have anything against you, but I need this job requires this output, and we've fallen short right now. And we fell short for multiple periods. So we need to make a change. And that's a difficult discussion to have when you care about people, but it's a necessary one. But I would say that's a challenge. That's an ongoing challenge. And then, because we're in a resource constrained market, you gotta pick your spots. You gotta be really careful about how you use these very limited resources. I get excited about shiny things, and and I love applying creative solutions to problems, and there's so many problems in our market. There's so many things we could be doing, but narrowing down on what's gonna give us the biggest ROI, what's gonna give us the biggest bang for our buck is really important in these markets where you don't have infinite amounts of capital resources. And that's hard because I'm like a kid in a candy store. I can't even believe this is work sometimes. I'm like, I do this for free. Like, I get to just ink up stuff and just get all the troops rallied around that idea, and they just go out and do it and execute at a high level, and you see it out there in the market. I was in Western Kenya yesterday. We just launched a new hub there, and these beautiful hubs in the middle of these very rural communities where you don't expect to see. We use shipping containers. We stack them in these really cool configurations. It's impressive to see. You got the solar panels, and, they're very well branded, and it's just, like, so interesting to see that in the middle of, like, these rural communities where you're not expecting to see these kind of modern architectural designs. And I can, like, imagine just complete overinvestment. I can go into those situations. Fortunately, the woman who runs all of our hub development is a much more disciplined person than me. 'Cause I go back to the
Thank
US.
goodness.
Yeah, seriously. I go back to the US, and I go to places like Rivian. I visit Tesla, Polestar, all these fancy EV companies that are looking to disrupt legacy auto. They have these beautiful showrooms, similar to how we position our hubs in these communities. You go in, it's like a co-working space. You get free coffee. You can just sit there, soak up internet and air conditioning. And I'm like, yeah, that's what we're gonna do at the hub. We're gonna have, you know,
And
in
then you
addition.
go,
And they're like,
not without
excuse me, sir, how much do you think that's gonna cost? And I'm like,
right,
okay, you're right. Okay,
right.
but can we have, like, at least picnic tables and free Wi-Fi? They're like, well, we can do the picnic tables, not the free Wi-Fi. I'm like, okay, all right, fine.
Okay.
Consensus.
What's important about what you just said is the resource allocation process. So we talked earlier, about being disciplined, thinking about every decision and its allocation of resources and its return on investment, I think is an important discipline for business owners. So I think even outside of your industry, someone will find that to be useful information. You said one other thing that I want to bring up before we jump into my last little segment. So when you talk about people in the way you talk about it, one thing that I'm hearing that's super clear is that you understand the capacity of your people and the capacity of your organization. Like those people end up meaning that there's so much capacity in your organization at any given time. And I just think that that's a valuable piece of knowledge as you think about resource allocation, but then also keeping the little human touch on that. Because if you've got someone who's at X on their journey and you need them to be at Y, you're saying, if I can get you to Y because you have everything you need, I'm getting you there. But if I can't, I'm going to send you on your way because it can ultimately affect the organization. Right. And I felt like that's deep. That's those hard decisions. And I just appreciate you saying it. Okay. Here's my last segment. And that's my favorite. I love to do this with our guests. So I'm going to ask you 4 questions, and you're going to tell me how much that question resonates with how you would ask that question from 0 to 100%. You only get 100% total. Okay. And so this is about decision making persona. So after you give me your percentage after I read each question, then I'll tell you what that persona is. Okay. So you get 0 to 100% for every question, but you only get 100% total. Make
You can
sense?
only allocate 100 points total across 4 questions.
That's correct.
But I don't know the 4 questions up front.
No, I'm about to tell you each question. You don't know them up front. You're going to give, after each question, you're going to give your percentage on that one. You can always go back and edit.
I can go back.
You can go back.
Okay. Because I might want to reallocate, right?
You might want to reallocate.
And
Absolutely.
I'm allocating based on importance.
To you, how much it resonates with you, how much of what I say you identify with is another way. Like, ooh, I ask questions just like that. Okay. Ready? So we're considering this new technology solution for farmers. How are we going to ensure it aligns with their specific needs and enhances their agricultural productivity?
40.
40%. Okay. So that's called a feeler. That's a feeler persona. So 40%. The feeler is you got a lot of gut in there, you got a lot of intuition, experience, that kind of stuff. Okay, here we go. Here's your next one. Reflecting on last year's agricultural innovations, what specific trends or insights have we uncovered that could significantly influence our next strategies?
30. I'm running out of points
You're
already.
running out of them. Keep up with the math. Keep up. Here we go. Here's your next one. That one, by the way, is called a planner. Sorry, that's called a planner. That's the planner persona. So now we're evaluating previous project outcomes. What key lessons have we learned that have fundamentally changed our decision-making process? Okay, that's called a counter. So we're just counting it up. All right. Here's
I
your
got
next
somebody
one.
on my team. My number 2, he thinks like that. He comes from strategy consulting, and
Uh,
he's all about that. I used to work with my wife. She was one of the co-founders in the company. She was like
yeah,
that. She is like that.
she's a counter. Yeah. Well, and I'll tell you after we get done, I'll tell you my view on these things. But here we go. Here's your last one. We're formulating this new technology solution for farmers. What specific data points are we going to rely on to validate our decisions?
I'm gonna do 15 on that one, and I'm gonna bump up the second question by 10 to get us
Okay.
to
Okay. So you are,
40, 45. Right?
and yep. And the last one is called a data
That's
driver.
4.
There's
That's
4.
4.
There was 4 questions. No, I was telling you what the persona was. It's called the
Okay.
data driver. So you're a feeler. So you're 40% feeler,
Mhm.
40% planner,
Yep.
5% counter, and 15% data driver.
Yep.
There you go. Share it with the world. All right. Thank you so much for doing that. That's like my favorite little exercise to see,
Yeah.
how do people match up? The idea is a balanced decision making process, right? You should constantly be making balanced decisions. Okay, as we wrap up, I have one final question, and it's really, if you could give one piece of advice to aspiring leaders in the ag tech sector, what would it be?
Be self-aware, confident in your own convictions, and take your time, right? People are gonna try and push you. Agriculture is a slow industry. Decisions are made carefully, starting with farmers and who can't afford to make mistakes. They got 40 chances in life, 40 seasons. If you start farming at 20, you end at 60. It's 40 seasons. So you got to be careful. And if you make a mistake, you can lose the farm. And so you got to approach your business the way our farmers approach their field. And that means taking your time, but also marry yourself to some conviction. And hopefully that conviction has meaning beyond just some monetary gain because it's incredibly difficult. You got to push through. And for most people, although they say money is important, usually it's something that's more important than that that drives them. You need to understand what that thing is so you can have the fuel to continue even when things get difficult.
Man, thank you so much. That was super insightful advice. It's been a pleasure having you on the show. Your expertise has been awesome. I want to share with our listeners, where can they learn more about you and Hello Track?
Go to hellotractor.com. We're updating the website right now, but the existing site has information on it. And then they can also reach out to me at my email. This is my first name at hellotractor.com or LinkedIn. That's my social footprint. I don't really do the other stuff.
Totally get it. Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. Remember, the best decisions come from great conversations. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe it, share it with your network. Let's keep the conversation going on social media using Dynamic Decisions Podcast. That means hashtag Dynamic Decisions Podcast. And until next time, keep questioning, keep growing, and keep leading with purpose.